wandering in, and it's half a minute to 6, half a minute to 7, so I'll call the meeting to order.
That's your definition.
I might mention that I could, if I wanted to be mean and technical, say, okay, everybody, let's go home, because we don't have a legal agenda. We don't have a legal agenda because I didn't get word of it until I got my packet on Thursday, and here was the agenda. And supposedly the board chair has to approve the agenda. And I imagine it won't happen again. I'm thinking the best way to handle this is for people who want something on the agenda to send it to both David and me. And that way it's certainly going to get discussed.
Did you not get an email version of it?
I didn't get anything until I got my packet. Nobody consulted me. I didn't know anything about your agenda item first. I've never heard of it until I got my packet.
Well, Nick, when I was chair, I took the responsibility of checking for I didn't wait for things to come to me. I acted on them.
Well, I guess I could do that in the future, but if come time to put out a notice on it, I haven't done that. The person who's going to do that should certainly call me. I never got a call from anybody.
May I say something?
Sure.
I think you're dead wrong. There's nothing in law about that would make this an illegal meeting, and if it is, it's incumbent on you as chairman to gavel this meeting shut right now. Secondly, I went the entire time from the prior meeting till now and got one phone call from you the entire time.
And
that
you
was
didn't
today.
answer it until
I answered it when I got the voicemail. We have one line here, and it's shared with the kitchen and the board's room. And
well, one way or another, the two
well,
of
the
us
problem is that
accepted.
you're just about impossible to get a hold of, and you can ask anybody, planning board, whatever. Your mailbox is sometimes overfull and can't get it. I'm talking snail mail. You sometimes can't get anything in it. You're often working emails that are old, and sometimes calling you on the telephone is less satisfying than shouting down a well. So please, you are barely compensated. I am paid, but I do not think it's reasonable that part of my job be to chase you around. 2 to 5 are my posted office hours. Now, I love the one I'm with, so I won't frequently stop talking to someone in the office to say the phone's ringing. Although probably most people in this room, I have said, may I get this? Because it is easier to deal with a phone call than to go find it in voicemail, call somebody back and try to reconnect. But please, take it upon yourself to reach out, Nick, because you're impossible to get a hold of. Many times you are impossible to get a hold of.
My phone now sits right next to me, so it's 6 inches from my hand, and nothing comes in from you.
Nothing was, I had no desire to talk to you. The way we left it 2 weeks ago, if I'd never talked to you again, it would be fine with me. Okay? It's your job.
I'm going to drop the subject. I don't want to hear from the coordinator that it would be fine if he never talked with the chair of the board again. I think we'd better go on. Public comment. That's items not on the agenda, but people can talk about whatever they like.
I have one.
Okay, please.
I don't know where to go, so I'm going to start with you guys. The last couple of years in the town report, in the list of officers in the beginning, the elected officers appointed, the representative to Franklin County Vocational School has been omitted. It hasn't been in the last 2 years. Now, a few years back, it was omitted for a couple of years, and I brought it to somebody's attention, and it did get in again. But the last 2 years, it hasn't got in there. So I
I'm
just
sorry,
want to bring
what
this to
was
somebody's.
omitted?
Huh?
I'm sorry, what was omitted?
The position of representative to the Franklin County Vocational Technical School.
Uh-huh. I don't know how that happened.
Well, I don't either, but the reason I'm bringing it to somebody's attention is that whoever puts this thing together, you know, maybe there's some other omissions. Maybe somebody should look at the whole list of elected officials, appointed officials, and those officials that are appointed by the moderator. That position is one that's appointed by the moderator. But the moderator also appoints the planning board and one other, and they're in here.
Do we have a system for checking it to make sure it's accurate and complete?
When Jeanette stopped doing it, I set up a system for checking it. But apparently I missed out a couple of years, but then I got it right thereafter. I don't know. I mean, since Jeanette is no longer town clerk, I don't know why she quit doing it. She never said she was not going to do it. It's just that
It being,
the annual report, it was getting to be time for town meeting and we didn't have an annual report. And so I asked about it and it had always been Jeanette before she wasn't doing it, so I started doing it. But at this point, it's going to be Rosa's responsibility, so she's the person you need to make sure knows these things.
Well, I just want to point out that it did get back in 2009, 2011, but then 2012, 2013, it disappeared again.
well, those were 2 years that I did the town report, George. We at least, the select board at least stopped reappointing you, which wasn't within our power. That happened a few times too, if you recall.
And I also know that the term of office has been printed incorrectly, and the expiration date of the office has been printed incorrectly. It is a 3-year appointment. In the current appointment expires in 2016.
Is the present report correct?
No,
As an omission.
it's
That's
not
what
Yeah.
in here,
I'm
and it wasn't in last year's.
Uh-huh.
Therein lies the problem.
That's the problem. What can we do?
But it was in 2011.
One thing we could have is a proofreading committee, but since Patricia stopped doing the newsletter and acted as editor, I take what people submit. And if they want to misspell, I publish their misspellings. And if they want to, so the only reports in there that I authored are the select board's report, which Don took a cut at, the broadband report, possibly something else. But everything else is submitted by somebody else and printed as received. So our new town clerk will take note of this, George.
Well, let's do an errata sheet and put it in every one of these that goes out from here.
What?
An
An
errata
sheet. I
sheet.
think that's an excellent
I
idea.
don't know what that is.
I don't know whether
Oh.
I have to really go with
It's
that.
a piece of paper that says on page 301, we have the following error.
It should have said this.
But I'm also pointing out that, you know, maybe, just maybe there's some other town positions that are missing from here too. I don't know. I don't know who would be responsible for making sure that everybody is properly acknowledged and listed in this thing.
Probably should be the town clerk because I'm the one that has to swear everybody in after they're appointed or elected. And there is a log
Yeah.
in the clerk's office that has records of when people were sworn in. It's supposed to have the terms of their elected or appointed position, and if they resign, that's in there as well. And are you the representative, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't.
Well, let's start out with an errata sheet that contains this mistake, and that'll be a
Do
start.
whatever you want, but I just wanted to point it out to somebody,
Thank you.
to see if we get something started to make it, the town report be more accurate. Okay?
Thank you. Any other public comment items? Hearing none. We have the minutes of the last meeting to approve.
I move the minutes of the last meeting be approved as
Second,
presented.
second.
I'll just make a comment on it. Rosa said, I think that you had received my corrections. I don't want to deal with my corrections. They're minor, it doesn't matter, but
No, I received emails from Patricia and Dawn with corrections. I received an email from David that said it was fine. I didn't get anything from you.
yeah, this bothers me.
Well, that's what I
because
told you on the
did
phone when you said that, was in future, when you send an email, just check with me to make sure I received it. Just call and leave a message. I sent you an email with corrections. So I will know to look for it. And if I did get it, I will let you know and check what your corrections
We
are.
should probably all do that.
My
at the
emails are
minute,
screwed
if
up.
you've
I don't
got
get a lot of
problems
things
with your
from you.
email. Okay.
I didn't get corrections from you, that's why they weren't in.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, chapter 268 items. Is there anything?
Rosa's pointed out that she doesn't find that the town clerk has been designated a special municipal employee. So a vote to designate the town clerk position special municipal employee, and then to grant Rosa 20D exemptions for everything else she does. What's that, about 9 things, Rosa?
I've got everything. I've already got special municipal employee for all the positions I hold, and the exemptions for the other positions. I do not have anything for town clerk. I couldn't find whether or not anything was done way back. Jeanette held both positions. She was town secretary as well as town clerk for a while. But I couldn't find anything.
I don't know that we need
Genevieve
to do
is
anything at that point. I move that the
I don't
town
think-
clerk's position be designated a special municipal employee position.
Second,
I don't
Any
know
other
what it
discussion?
matters, because elected positions are exempt. You can hold as many elected positions as you can get elected to, but there's no harm in doing so.
Good.
Could take the thunder out of the Ethics Commission if they go on the warpath.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Police Department wage rate vote.
I don't really understand what we need to do there, do you?
Yeah, I do. The board approved the line items in the budget. The board recommended them. The town meeting approved them, but the town accountant has no way to figure out what your thinking is on actual hourly wages for the, so they are lined out in my report as, and they come from my notes from the police chief when he presented at that joint meeting.
Wasn't that in the minutes of that meeting?
It was in the minutes of that meeting that the board voted to recommend those budget items, but voting the lump
But not the
sum did
amount.
not have the same effect as setting the hourly wages. Had that been a salary, it would have been set by the vote of town meeting. The Board of Selectmen are the only ones with the power to set hourly wages.
Okay, I move that we put on the record that the new wage rates we approved for the police department are $14.37 for an officer, $15.81 for a sergeant, $17.39 for a chief, and that they will be effective on July 1st.
Second,
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Next item. Offer $500 on retired fire truck. David?
I listed this thing on Craigslist, and Ryan is one person who responded. We've had an undetermined offer for scrap. I've had about 5 different companies offer to assist us with selling the truck for a fee of $200 on up, as if it were a valuable antique. I have done research, and the scrap metal price right now for shredder steel is down to 120 bucks, and for light iron is around $100. That was last week. So we'd be selling this truck to Mr. Betters probably for slightly less than we could get for it. But we'd have to prep it and haul it to Greenfield. And I think given the fact that Erving donated this truck to Warwick, municipal, and it would be in a way going home, that I'd recommend the board approve his offer and get this thing off the books and keep it. It won't come back as a Toyota anytime soon this way.
I move that we authorize the town coordinator to sell the retired fire truck L900 to Ryan Betters in Erving
For $500.
for $500.
Second.
What was the offer from Craigslist? $1, or didn't make it $1?
From Craigslist, I listed it, and Nick, I'm just going from memory, but do you remember, Ryan, what I said? Did I put 1,000 on it?
I think it just
Or just
said
said best
some
reasonable
scrap
offer.
and better than scrap price.
Yeah, best offer in excess of scrap price was what I said.
I didn't actually see it on there. I word of mouth through the fire department knew that it was for sale.
So the Craigslist person didn't give a number?
I am the Craigslist person. I am the Craigslist person. I photographed it and listed it on Craigslist. People then go on the internet, go to the Craigslist Western Mass site, find the truck, and reply by email or telephone to me, the seller, on behalf of the town of Warwick.
Right, well, you said you had one person come in from Craigslist.
I had, the only place I've advertised is Craigslist. So all 6 companies that wanted to sell the truck for us for a fee came through Craigslist. Somebody who called up and asked, had we gotten an offer more than $500 yet? Everything came from Craigslist. This is the most solid offer. Everything else is poking around.
What's the tonnage of the truck? Do you have any idea?
I'd guess 7.
I don't think it should be that high, but
I don't know. I mean, maybe not. I mean, it's
I think
basically a
it's
frame, a
right.
water tank, and an engine,
yeah,
and
and it's bulky, but there's not much there.
yeah, it would be wild ass.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're selling it for less than scrap metal value, but we don't have to take 6 tires off of it, pay to dispose of it. We don't have to haul it physically from here to Greenfield and pay for that. We don't have to remove the gas tank and the fluids. You have to prep things, or otherwise you get about half.
Yeah, I just wanted a round number, and you've given me a round number, which is 7 tons.
And you can discount it or
That
whatever
means
you want.
$700, and then you take a fee of $250 off it, and you're less than $500. So I'm in favor of what you did.
So
Is there any other discussion?
was there a second?
Yes.
I think you seconded it.
John did, yes.
Is there any other discussion?
It seems like, to me, like it's a good thing to do because it would put the truck in the hands of somebody who would appreciate it.
That too.
And I like that idea.
Would you like to hear Ryan's story? He has a compelling story. It worked for me.
Let's hear it.
Okay. I've had family on the fire department. It started Millers Falls Fire Department was where it originally came from, because Erving was split back until '92. It had a Millers Falls Fire and Water District, what was owned by Montague and Erving. I've had family on the fire department since about the 1930s, and my great uncle spec'd that truck brand new with a basically budget of no money. That's why there's no chrome on it. That's why there's a small pump on it. They told him it wouldn't get another truck for that station, and he said, "I will." And they ended up with it. And he was on the fire department for 47 years. I've had a lot of family and friends, close friends throughout the years on the fire department that ran that truck. I went to my first fire on that truck, and I basically just wanted to store it and make it, if I don't have the money to restore it, put it in my yard and basically make a little firefighter's little memorial thing out of it. And for all of us through in the county that are doing what we do, I've been on Erving for 14 years, and hopefully someday I'll be able to keep it running and maybe parade it or whatnot. So that's my story in short, what I'd like to do with it. If I may, I'd like to ask the board if they would consider selling or including a couple of the items that were taken off of it that were to try to keep it original, that are really no value by themselves. Being like the suction hoses that were on the side of it, the brackets that hold it on, some small items like that kind of just keep it original. I've got old pictures of it and the old specs to it, so I'm going to try, if granted, going to try to find replicas of the old lights and things that were on it originally. But
Mr. Chairman.
Can you change your motion?
I can change it, let's hear what Bill has to say.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I would say, given your compelling story and you being a mutual aid partner, I would almost assure you that Chief Gates would, anything that we took off of it that you need back on it, include that in the truck. I can't say for sure, but yeah.
I don't think the board should be voting something to compel the chief.
No.
Keep
No.
that stuff off the truck. If you can make a side deal with the chief,
okay.
we got no problem.
I believe it was probably for in prep to just.
No, actually, our expectation was, our best hope was that a farmer with a similar vehicle would purchase it. And so yeah, it was probably thought not to be a fire truck, but we just took delivery of 4 fire trucks, and I think they're just looking for, and suction hoses cost lots of money. You'd have to make a deal with the chief.
Could I ask Rosa to read the motion back?
You authorize the town coordinator to sell the retired L900 fire truck to Ryan Betters of Erving for $500.
And to ask the fire chief if he would be willing to replace the parts that have been removed before delivery.
And to replace parts that have been removed.
Yes.
Prior to delivery. Okay, so it now reads, authorize town coordinator to sell retired L900 fire truck to Ryan Betters of Erving for $500, and to ask fire chief if he would be willing to replace parts that have been removed prior to delivery.
And there's
Second.
Second, thanks. Any other discussion?
I think we discussed it to a fairly well.
I think we have. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for that. Very great.
Patricia, I'm going to ask if we can
I'd love to
move
get this done before July.
regularizing committees to after Firefighter Road. So that
Talk to the chief.
those two
Let's
items,
just
the
try to
letter in
check in
support and the
before-
Firefighter Road,
I can give you one right now. if you
back
like.
to back.
I love it.
I don't think it's special, want it
We're
any.
gonna get a title out of
Okay.
that too, I do believe.
Let's do that.
I believe we have one.
Agenda is changed slightly to have the regularizing committees put after the Firefighter Road. Now, letter in support of Wired West.
It's the hourly wages, it was the work that else.
Who's going to speak to that one? Reva,
Well,
would you
I
like
can
to?
speak to it, but, I mean, have you read the letter?
I've read the letter, yes.
Okay, so, I mean, what I'd rather do is, I mean, if you have questions or you want to define what it is you want me to say, I mean, I can sort of give background, but it may be obvious, so.
if nobody has any questions to you about the letter, I have one question, which is, are you going to be absolutely devastated if I change the next to last sentence on paragraph 4 to say that the town will seriously consider mechanisms to raise additional funds, period?
As opposed to?
As opposed to will seriously consider a mechanism to raise additional funds by committing the borrowing authority of the town to the financing of the project. Personally, I'm a little bit concerned about committing the borrowing authority of the town to anything.
Right, well, you can't, really. I mean, you town meeting can do that, and
That's right. That's
so-
right. But I'm not sure we even will want to ask them.
What?
So
You're not sure what?
I'm not sure we will even want to ask them at the town meeting, because it depends on the amount of money, on the chances of getting the money back, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And
So I'd rather leave it out and ambiguous at this point.
well, here's the, I'm wondering if you could say, if you're going to say what you said, and then say including the possibility of. I'll tell you what the issue is here.
Okay.
Is that the IT bond bill, which includes the $50 million for last mile, which is not enough, is still, it hasn't passed the Senate yet, and we expect it to pass by sometime in July. But and it's not because of that $50 million; it's because it's part of a much larger IT bond bill. Anyway, so Wired West is trying to, and MBI is kind of has interim. Judy Dumont left; they haven't replaced her yet, so MBI doesn't have a permanent director at this point. We're interested in, once that money becomes available, to be able to hit the ground running in terms of MBI and Wired West working together and all of that. It's clear in terms of financing that if this is going to happen, the towns that are going to get wired are going to have to participate. Now, how they participate, in some, and most likely, but with issuing a bond. Now, that doesn't mean that the town has to pay back the bond, and that's where you get into what you're talking about. Obviously, the town needs to look at the business plan, as it exists at that point, and feel confident that if this bond is issued, Wired West is going to be able to make the payments, or the bulk of the payments in any case, and that Warwick isn't going to end up on the hook for all of the payments, or any other town. And that's so. This is not, you're not committing to anything specific. There's no amount in here. There's no payback mechanism in here, any of that kind of stuff. But Wired West felt that MBI needed to hear that Wired West towns understand that they will need to participate financially in some way, and that they want that participation to be through Wired West as their regional organization for doing this fiber network. And that's the most important part of this letter. So if you just kind of are very vague about, you know, some kind of mechanism, then it doesn't really, there's no real point in letting, you know, MBI know, you know, that the mechanism, you know, I mean, one of our concerns is that MBI is going to, after the bond bill passes, start going out individually to towns and talking to towns about what they are and are not willing to do and how this might work, which is ground that we've really already covered. And that could extend the whole project for a year easily, because they're going to go to towns and they're going to get different messages from different towns and that sort of thing. So it doesn't need to be Wired West 40, but I really feel like the letter needs to state that the funding mechanism will be coordinated through Wired West, and that the town understands and is, you know, willing to consider that kind of participation. Now, you can't promise, you can't say that you're going to do it. You know, you don't have the authority, number one, and number two, you don't have any of the details, you know. So it's yeah.
Could you change the wording then to say coordinating with Wired West instead of committing the borrowing authority of the town?
Can I?
Mr. Chairman, could I interject here?
Tom, could you give me that question? No, thanks. Never mind.
Nick?
I'm sorry?
Could I speak while she's in answer to this, and just in general? I would urge the board to look at this somewhat like a grant funding request.
Yeah. So
It's okay to maybe gild the rose a little bit, and you, at this point, because you're not committing to anything, but don't weaken the purpose of the request by sending out a wimpier letter. Then we can't commit the town. So
it says we'll seriously consider a mechanism. That's you're not committing to. You're not. All you're saying is we'll seriously consider it. You're not saying we'll do it.
Exactly. Nick, would you be happy if we put a comma
I mean,
after funds?
I'm not sure what other mechanism you think you might have in mind, but you know, we're talking about assuming we're talking about a total project cost of $100 million for all the towns. Okay.
For all the towns?
For if all 45 towns that you know, MBI is talking about wiring, and almost all of them are Wired West members. We're talking about a total project cost of roughly $100 million. $50 million of that we are hoping is going to be in the IT bond bill. That the state will be a grant from the state. We don't know the details of how that's going to come into play, but we know that it's allocated for last mile fiber. All right. So that leaves $50 million to come up with. We're currently working, hoping to get some Connect America funds, which are federal grant funds. We don't know, again, how much. There's a lot of that's up in the air, but it could be in the vicinity of 10, maybe even 20, 25 million. We're also hoping that there may be some money that would be available through some kind of a private partnership with some company that might do the wiring or whatever, you know. But so that leaves probably roughly 25 million for the towns to come up with. And it might be, it's conceivable, it might be as much as 50 million.
Of which Warwick's share will
Of
be.
which Warwick's share is gonna be, part of it, you know, the allocation mechanism, you know, it depends. Are you gonna allocate by number of road miles, or number of utility poles, you know, property values, some combination of those things?
Can you give me a ballpark?
Well, divide 25 million by, let's say, 45. You know, I mean, that's, so,
Half a million roughly.
half a
Do
million.
you think that the subscribers in Warwick could pay the town $1 million? Would
That's
pay
not
the town $1 million?
issue.
I'm not sure what you're asking. What
I'm asking
which
if the money
subscribers?
can be gotten back.
Oh, well, yeah,
from
I mean, the whole point of this
subscribers.
is that it's the whole model is that we have to wire things, and it's the same concept as Warwick broadband service. That, you know, people then subscribe, except that they can get not only internet, but internet phone and some form of video in all likelihood. And the bonds will be paid back through subscription rates.
Well, in our
So-
present system, we have roughly 100 subscribers, and if 100 subscribers are asked to pony up $1 million,
We're
that's
talking 20
10,000
million,
each.
we're talking 20 years, Nick. A
Um,
20-year bond.
So
And,
nonetheless, a big chunk of change.
Half a
Nick,
million over 20 years.
okay.
And our current customer base is over 200.
Well, also, there are people that, you know, would be paying more because they'd be paying for more services. And also, there are people who can't get Warwick broadband now, who would like to have good internet. However, in my mind, this is all really premature, because what the questions you're asking are all about the business model. And it's really premature to talk about the business model because there are so many unanswered questions. Are we going to get CAF funds? Are we going to, you know, I mean, they're just, you know, what is the allocation going to be? So we're not asking, that's why we can't ask for a commitment, because you haven't seen the business plan, because there isn't a business plan yet. MBI has a business, a pro forma, a set of pro forma statements that spell out are from one set of assumptions. Wired West has one from another set of assumptions. They need to be combined. What, you know, this, you know, if there were going to be any kind of a bond offering, all of that would have to be really there. And that's what voters would have to consider, and what, you know, the finance committee and the select board would have to consider. Is this a viable plan? You know, our numbers indicate that yes, it's a viable plan as long as you have a certain subscription rate.
Well, that's true, but asking the subscribers to come up with $1 million and asking them
We're not
to
doing
come
that,
up with
Nick.
40,000
We're
is
not
rather
doing
different.
that, Nick.
What I would suggest here is you've heard my qualms and you've heard Reva's argument in favor, and
Could
I
I
would-
make a suggestion?
would like to know whether there's a motion. I will follow whatever is
I
said.
would like to move that we sign this letter, and that if you feel it's absolutely necessary, we edit it by putting a comma after funds and following that by including
see if we can just get past the letter that's before us. We've got over 200 customers on Warwick Broadband. Some of them pay $30. Most of them pay $50. We're on target next year for in excess of $100,000 in revenue. And that's at about 50% market penetration rate. Yeah, there's expenses associated. There's a lot of expenses associated with our system because we've done the low-hanging fruit. It's now upgrades and hand-to-hand guerrilla warfare to bring it into one little place and another little place with very low return. But $100,000 a year in revenue will service at modern day interest rates a lot of debt. Why slam the door at this point? MBI is in, and Wired West are having a little bit of an institutional struggle. I see MBI wanting to supplant Wired West. Let's give Wired West the support. It's going to be subject to approval by the select board in the future to bring it before the town, by the town voting it, possibly an override. It will be reviewed by the Department of Revenue as to whether it's allowable debt and can come in under or over the debt limit. And finally, unless we're back into another meatball situation, the bond market itself is going to be the most critical aspect. We could agree to it and they could say, this business plan stinks. We're not putting our money there. So I really don't think you're at a critical juncture to save us from ourselves now, Nick. Sign the letter.
Well,
I truly do
I've
think
said what
that
my
this is a
preference
moot
is.
point, but if you really cannot bear to vote for it without any changes, I've made that very small suggestion. Can you live with that?
I'm going to sign whatever the motion is passed, that it should be signed. I've said my
Okay.
piece on this,
All
and
right.
Rita has said hers.
I move that Nick be authorized to sign the letter to MBI as presented.
Second.
Any other discussion? Is there any other discussion?
We've already spent quite a lot of time on it.
That's true.
I think we've heard all the different aspects of it. So. And
Okay,
Rita has spent a great amount of time working on it.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't make
No
it,
question.
I know that doesn't
make it something that should be passed. I'm just, you know,
I will say, Warwick's best interest, you really ought to keep the pressure on MBI, and this is a good way to do it. And you're not really sticking your neck out too far, and it's going to keep MBI under the gun.
We're not actually
Listen,
committing ourselves to anything.
I told you I will sign whatever you guys pass.
I didn't share that information. You and I had a conversation.
So,
Are you going to ask for a vote?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay,
I was waiting to hear whether there was any more discussion.
there is.
It kept going on and on and on. Good.
I'm not saying
Let's hear the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
No, but I will sign it. Sorry that took too much time. Fiber to Orange Road.
Don't plan the party yet, but we have promised that on Monday, a week from today, they're going to be installing that fiber lateral to that cell tower, and that is our next serious bottleneck to overcome in our system. So I'm pretty excited. I just handed John his marching orders to be sure to be awake and down there at 7:30 in the morning. And next meeting, I hope to report that that's done and live, and we'll make our customers who are served by the cell tower, bring them to parity with our customers, the majority of which get it through the mountain, which already has a good feed. Now, as soon as we light up the cell tower, I'll light up the MBI fiber to the mountain, and our current connection to New Hampshire will become our failover in case something happens. And this weekend, something did. Our whole email domain went dark for 3 days, and it passed no traffic for a day, and there wasn't a backup system. So backup systems are important. I'm excited by this. It's been a year since this project was supposed to be done. It's coming in 10 days shy of a year late.
Yay, David.
What day did you say was
Monday.
Anything else on this one?
Be the 16th.
Okay, Patricia, you're on regularizing committees and
I
their
have,
duties.
in the process of going through this list of appointments we need to make, I have been referring back to the town handbook. And as you know, we added the ADA coordinator duties to David's duties for part of his job description. I would like to suggest that we add the workers' compensation agent duties as well. And furthermore, there is a surveyor of lumber, which David thinks we don't need to do anything about. But if we should ever need it, I am suggesting that maybe if we added that to the duties of the Town Forest Committee, those are people who would be capable
What was
of,
that position?
that is the surveyor of lumber. It's one of those things that's in Mass General Law, which is why it's there in the first place. Which is why I'm suggesting that rather than just abolish it, we give it to the Town Forest Committee.
I don't think you can give a position to a committee.
Not a position, but duty.
But it is a position. It's Mass General Law, and Chapter 28, and it says there shall be one or more persons elected by the inhabitants of the town at the annual town meeting to be the surveyor of lumber, who shall be skilled in surveying and measurement of lumber.
At annual town meeting they're supposed to vote this?
That's what the law says. This next session says, said surveyor shall survey oak and other hardwood commonly used in shipbuilding, and mahogany, ash, and cedar, and other ornamental wood and lumber, and all other lumber brought into their town by water for sale. This is a shipbuilding law from centuries ago. And the survey of pine boards and planks, I can go on for pages.
I think it's pretty cute, so I really hate to get rid of
It's
it.
an elected
Well, I want to run for it.
It's an elected position, and you
Yeah.
can't appoint anybody.
Can we have a special election? I will,
But we better
I'll
have
be a
extended
write-in.
hours, because I might not be able to get here like the
Yeah, the
day.
ship might be in at midnight, maybe.
Okay, well, then I
By
will drop
Moss
that
Brook.
perfectly happily.
What's that?
But I would
Moss
like
Brook.
to add the workers' compensation agent duties to David's job description.
Don't forget, I'm also the ADA coordinator
Well, yes, I'm aware of that.
and procurement officer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get a bigger card.
Does anybody have any objection to doing that?
Does David?
David
I want
is
at least
doing
a
it
10%
anyway.
increase in title. Tell you the truth, on the workman's comp stuff, I'm not sure if it's me or the treasurer, but we get it done. You know, it is labor law, and it turned to our council too. So, but probably in law we need one insurer. I'll be that.
Is this, that we have a committee that you were regularizing by taking the power away and giving it to David? I don't quite.
No, not at all. It's
That's right,
just that
personal.
it is one of those things that we should have somebody in the position and we don't. but David winds up doing the work, even though it's not in his job description. So I'm suggesting we put it in his job description, so if anybody ever has a question about who does that, we know.
The only benefit I can
Okay,
see to me is if I'm out there doing it and somebody says, what the hell are you doing that for? I think I'm gonna sue the town. It's better off that it is in my job description.
Yeah,
Well,
agreed.
you know, my problem is really that I suffer from OCD. And I just can't stand to see these little things sticking out there.
Well,
I suffer from OCD too. You're OCD.
I think it's okay if you make a motion to do this through the back door of the catch-all at the end of the agenda. There is no way that something called regularizing committees, that would pop up in my mind as something you were gonna do.
It should have said officers in their duties, that's the problem, rather than
Okay,
committee.
well, why don't you make a motion?
Okay, well, I move that the duties of the workers' compensation agent be added to the job description of the town coordinator.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Where are we?
Fuel
Fuel
bin.
bin update.
Got some good news. We got fuel oil for $3.34 a gallon, which seems pretty good to me, and diesel at $3.69, which is sure better than you can buy it at the pump today for. So Andrea's idea of giving us like 16 hours to say yes or no is much preferred by the bidders on this. Or the time, we got lucky with timing, whatever it was. That's the story there. $3.34 for fuel oil, $3.69 for diesel.
Didn't we already give you?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just
we
telling
did.
you, my success of that. Because the first round, we had no bids for fuel oil.
Oh, that's good news.
And a higher bid for diesel.
Good news and congratulations, and do we have to do anything?
Nope, you had already given me authority, and I sent an email saying we'll take this bid, so it's all taken care of. Just giving you an update.
Okay, zoning enforcement.
Just wanted you to know that the Wagon Wheel Campground is appealing the building inspector's order to cease operating as a trailer park. That is a place where people reside. They have filed an appeal on the basis that they are a pre-existing non-conforming use. A bunch of us are working on testimony for that hearing, and I'm quite impressed with the testimony the planning board chairman Katie has developed. It includes the fact that in 1970 we made mobile homes and mobile home parks illegal, and the owner of the campground was on the planning board that year. So we've got lots of testimony.
The
and-
current owner? Or
No.
Two owners back?
The owner before Al Latanzio, his name, it escapes me. It'll come to me, but anyway, that owner. So it's going to be a pretty hard
It's gonna be hard for them
case to
argue
make that they.
grandfather.
Yeah, I don't know why there's, if they're appealing just to stall because they've got contracts signed with people who are living there, I don't know what's going on, but.
We'll find out eventually.
One question, and I don't know how to phrase it quite, but when I made an appeal to the zoning board of appeals on the cell tower back in 2006 or 7, it didn't matter what they said substantively. I could have blown them out of the water because of their procedures. They were off.
You're
Has that
absolutely
been
right.
straightened out?
Yes. The ZBA and planning board attended a pretty good seminar this year and basically came home understanding that no decision the ZBA had ever made in its history would stand up in court. That they learned that they need to seek testimony, that they can only look at that testimony and the governing laws and regulations. They can't, though, go out and do massive amounts of research to prove a point. It has to be brought to them. They need to make findings of fact and findings of law to support the decision, and none of this kind of stuff had ever been done before. So you're absolutely right.
Now they know what they're
Now they
doing,
know
that's what you're
how
saying.
to do it, and basically understand that we were very, very lucky that we weren't taken apart, because it wouldn't have taken much skill to beat us in court in the past.
Okay, that's good. All I wanted to know. Anything else on this item? Hearing nothing, fiscal year 15 appointments.
Do you want to go through them line by line, or?
I did want to add that I did send everyone an email this morning,
I
but
did-
Miriam Williamson has agreed to be the Democratic Registrar of Voters. I had to obviously give that up because I'm not a town clerk, and my appointment was due to expire June 30th of this year anyway,
Yeah.
so she's willing to take that on. Because that was
Well,
one
I
thing.
have added that.
I don't know what you're doing about it. This is what it's supposed to be.
Do we have a Republican registrar of voters? Do
We
we
have
have a
one each.
Republican?
We have, I believe, George Day is the Republican and Ginny Fowles is the undecided. You have to have a minimum of three. One,
Undeclared.
right, undeclared voter,
Okay.
whatever they call it. But they're each 3-year terms, they're staggered, like the board here.
Because this is an omnibus thing, rather than do the whole list, which is not necessarily correct, I would prefer to go through it line by line. How do you feel about it?
It's not my meeting,
All
it's
right.
however you want to do it.
How do you feel about it, Nick and Dawn?
What's your choice here?
I would like to go through the list of positions that we have to appoint and the people that we have to appoint them to them, one at a time, rather than just adopting the whole list, which is what we've been doing for years, and I think it's gotten us pretty seriously mixed up.
I would assume adopt the whole list at once, but if there are concerns about accuracy somewhere, then we
There
should
are
do it line by
concerns
line.
about accuracy, which I can perfectly well discuss with Rosa later, if that is your preference.
I agree with Nick. I don't think we need to go through the whole thing.
Okay.
Right.
Would that be okay with you, Rosa?
Yeah, except if you think something's really inaccurate, you shouldn't move it.
No, that's right. So if there are specifics, you should
There
put them
are
into your
small
motion.
inaccuracies here and there, that's
Sorry, you said 5
small.
small.
Well,
Well, why don't you put in your small inaccuracies and then we will move the thing as a whole.
I have put them in my list.
All right, just tell us what they are.
Pardon?
Just tell us what
Just
they
tell
are.
us what they are, yeah.
That will take me 15 or 20 minutes. Why don't we just accept the list as Rosa just presented it, with the proviso that any errors will be corrected later.
But then that would require new motions and.
But how do we know what the errors are?
Because I will send you out a list of what I have come up with. They are minor kinds of errors, like people being left out of the, or their appointment and ending date, their tenure incorrect. Mostly the end date of the tenure.
You know, I'm gonna think we've gotta go through this line by line, because Otherwise, it's gonna be confusing to the readers of the minutes, what we've done.
Okay,
I wouldn't put it off till the 23rd, that's only a week before the end of the fiscal year.
no, we're not doing that. Okay, we need to reappoint Rosa Fratangelo Palcari as animal control officer.
How about if we go to the Green Communities discussion, and then those who
And come
care
back.
can come back to this, and you can send me home.
That's fine.
That's a good idea.
You can send Janice home, because she's here to talk about Green Communities. And
Okay,
Mary.
we're gonna put this off and go on to discussion of green communities. Yes?
Yes. Green Communities, please gather forward. We're going to move to that subject.
You want me to move up a chair?
I don't know. You want to do it from there?
I think so.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Wonderful. So a week or so ago, I asked David, what's the plan for green communities for the summer? And he wrote back. And I told him,
that.
no, I'm not gonna read it. But
You're gonna have to tell us now.
I told him, all right, these are my words. Our energy committee will have to take on criteria number 3, which is the energy reduction plan. That is the biggest time consumer of all the criteria, but we weren't going to take on much more than that. In fact, we could use a little help with even that, counting street lights and getting, researching what it would take to reduce energy consumption by either buying the street lights and installing LEDs or so on. And then David gave us an update, but I would, before we even tackle this in our energy committee, the Buildings and Energy Committee, I kind of want to know what our target dates are, what our deadlines, who's doing what else in town.
So you identified one of basically 3 things that need to happen. Is that right?
There are 4 criteria. Remember when Jim Barry was here?
Yeah, but I can only remember 3 of them. So I've got the
fourth one's
stretch code, adoption of the stretch code, provision for as-of-right zoning, the plan, and what's the 4th thing?
It's so we might as well get these. Criteria number 1 is as-of-right siting. Criteria number 2 is expedited permitting. Criteria number 3 is the energy use baseline, figuring out what we've been using and come up with a plan to reduce by 20% over the next 5 years. Criteria 4 is the purchasing of only fuel-efficient vehicles, which we think in this town is exempt. And criteria 5 is the stretch code.
Okay. So the question is, what's our, well, in terms of the critical path, which is our biggest vulnerability? I'm thinking that it's the adoption of the stretch code, but I don't know, and so I didn't want to answer Janice's question is what's the plan, what's the timeline? But I think the most difficult thing is going to be the adoption of the stretch code, and it's going to require a lot of public education. And a too aggressive, my feeling is a too aggressive timeline could be counterproductive. I did that once already, dragged it forward thinking Jim Barry made lots of sense. This is a no-brainer. Go back to the town meeting, and a couple people made compelling arguments against it, and it died. One more round like that, and I think we're done.
We've already done the as-of-right.
Well, no, we've asked the planning board to
Ask the planning
develop.
board to develop one.
So we could have a special town meeting at some point to take up the zoning changes when they're ready and the adoption of the stretch code. And if I were the Building and Energy Committee, I would not want to work too far ahead on the inventory and reduction plan until we knew that we actually were going to become a green community. It's a lot of work.
I agree with all of that. So I asked Jim Barry, how much lead time do you need to come to Warwick as he offered and give either a private forum for just Warwick or make it a more reasonable forum on the stretch code only. And he said 19 minutes.
That's how long his commute is?
That's how long his commute is, that he is ready. This is his job.
Yeah.
If people have questions, if they want another presentation, Berniston has invited him last week to their select board meeting to present on the green communities. So he's ready, when we're ready. So with the group that I belong to called North Quabbin Energy, we realized that there's two other towns, Orange and Royalston, that are struggling with stretch code issues as well. And we could either make a regional kind of public forum and get one of the larger town halls and try to get contractors to come, or just do it in individual towns in a more homey kind of setting. And really put the word out through Hampshire. And that I would be willing to do with North Quabbin Energy. I mean, I can bring it forth to the Buildings and Energy Committee to see what sort of energy we have to do to get the word out that the stretch code, and answer people's questions, actually get our own questions answered. But mostly Jim Barry is fairly clear on what it means to adopt the stretch code.
Well, I think our entire board has heard from Jim Barry and heard his presentation once already.
Not on just the stretch code, though. I mean, I had several questions for him directly about the stretch code as it relates to commercial and other kinds of
No,
buildings.
Jim Barry gave a presentation upstairs in the town hall. Big screen. Pat, Don, Nick, do you remember it? Were you there?
Think so, yeah.
I think so.
How many years? 2 years ago?
2 or so. It was a very
Yeah.
compelling argument.
It
I'm
seems-
drilling down to different kind of politics here. We can hold 15 of those things, and if only the green tree huggers show up, game over.
Yeah.
I think what we need to do is work the construction community.
That's what I'm talking about. Stretch code presentation only. That's what Jim would like to do. And that has, well, there's some new issues coming up with the stretch code and the July 1st adoption of the International Energy Conservation Code that's coming like in 3 weeks. You know, not by choice. That's what Massachusetts has to live by starting July 1st.
Because the IPC is changing.
Yes.
They adopted the IPC.
Yes, which is very similar to the existing stretch code. So the question becomes, how stretched is the new stretch code going to be by the time Warwick? The soonest Warwick could become a green community is this. I think that we have to have stretch code adopted by the end of, and perhaps all of our paperwork in by the end of October. I'm a little unclear. For the money to materialize in January of 2015 to do the projects that we laid out. So how soon do we want to proceed? And the other zoning board or planning boards that are involved with the other criteria, even I think we need to inventory the vehicles in town anyway, particularly the police cruiser, for energy reduction, not necessarily for replacement. You know, in other words, the criteria 5 or 4, the vehicle plan for purchasing new vehicles, I think we can safely ignore that, but we have to include vehicles in our energy reduction plan.
Stretch code is a discrete criteria. At their end, they're going to say, when did the town vote it? And has it been approved by the Attorney General? The as-of-right zoning, same thing. How do we know on expedited permitting? Does the select board just write up a policy and vote it and hand it to the building inspector? Or what's the expedited permitting?
12 months from the date of a complete application, and it doesn't affect all permits, just those relating to criteria 1, which was the
As-of-right solar.
as-of-right siting for whatever the community wants, if it's solar.
We wouldn't know how to take a year to issue a permit. We couldn't figure out how to take that long.
Yeah, so, or a letter from legal counsel that affirms there's no preclusions for expedited permitting, include language addressing approval procedures, associated timing for any applicable bylaws or ordinances or regulations. Anyway,
Okay.
we all got that last.
So, I thought I heard Ted say at the last meeting, the previous meeting, that this might be ready around December. Did anybody else pick that up? Was I?
Yeah, he said
I
that at
think
the last
that's
meeting.
what he
Yeah.
said.
He said
So
it
we're not
is.
gonna, it doesn't look to me that we're gonna make an October deadline.
Did you ask him why it would take so long?
No.
We didn't. We could.
There's here, I mean, they gotta draft it, they gotta get it reviewed by council, they've got to advertise it and hold hearings. And then we have to have a special town meeting, which takes 2 weeks' notice, not 7 days. And I don't know.
Yeah, well, I wondered if you saw the models that Jim Barry presented, if you noticed those. I mean, does he think he has to do this from, how do you call that, when you have to?
From scratch?
Yeah. Anyway,
I'll ask him
okay.
about that deadline. But that is what I remember. How bad do you think we're hurting ourselves from all the work we've done? Should I start leaving lights on, window open?
No, with the school, no, we have plenty of other people in town who already do that.
No, but is this
No.
town-wide, or is it for the
For the 20%
energy
reduction?
reduction? Yeah.
It's a question about whether or not we can use the money to incentivize private homeowners to participate in Mass Save or not. We actually can, I think that's coming down the pike. But we have really no control over whether or not the people will do that. So I think the Buildings and Energy Committee will concentrate on the town buildings. And yes, there's plenty of room for reduction. And if Steve is working furiously on how the school could get included in that, in one of our buildings, because I think every other community that has that's part of a school district where they share operational expenses have not included their school in their green communities reduction plan. Because
Well, since we are basically the landlords, it seems to me it should be.
We're triple net landlord, though. We don't pay the insurance, we don't pay, they pay all the operating costs. So that's an interesting question to have. How do you get to that?
Steve has asked Jim Barry, and then he went even higher up in DOER, and they said, let us know when you find out how to do that.
That's helpful.
Because they've run into this before, and what green communities, towns are doing is just leaving their schools out of the picture and continue to let the schools waste.
If we got all their propane bills, all their fuel oil bills, all their electric bills, it seems like it'd be possible.
Oh yeah, I get that from Steve
Yeah.
already. But we can't share in the savings. I mean, we can't, we could put $125,000
It's interesting.
What?
These guys are using basically the same argument that the opponents that Steve is facing are giving him, which is you'll never see the savings.
Well,
And-
we'll have to share the savings.
But what's wrong with that?
Nothing. It
But
is so right.
DOER is saying the same thing that people that are opposed to the model that Steve.
No, DOER is saying we welcome, if you can figure out a way to get that to happen, that would be great. Steve, go for it.
If we can prove the savings occur, is that enough, or do
No.
we have to prove that it accrued to our financial bottom line?
It's the mechanism that these school districts are using to share operating expenses, that de-incentivizes the towns that are participating in green communities to throw their school in, because if Northfield gets 125.
Oh, you mean, so we wouldn't want to take our grant money and spend it on the school, because our yield would be 10% of the savings.
Right.
And we might be crazy if the state were paying for it and not our own taxpayers. We might be willing to do it.
Well,
We
where
might.
are we here?
So basically, I wanted to know who else in town is going to participate in this Green Communities application. And I wanted to let the select board know what it is that we were willing to do. I mean, we've known about, our Buildings and Energy Committee has known about Green Communities since its inception. In fact, I think we were doing it before they started without doing the application. And all the other towns in my North Quabbin Energy Group have said, that have gone for Green Communities, have said, holy crap, what a lot of paperwork. Wow.
I'll do the expedited permitting. The planning board will do the
As of right side.
as of right zoning. Who's gonna sell the stretch code to the carpenter community?
I'd be willing to put in some energy into organizing a forum by going to Hampshire and finding out who are the carpenters and going to, you know, maybe Bill Lyman could help me identify other people and would come to a evening or afternoon or whatever, so that Jim could explain the stretch code.
What would be a quick argument for the carpentry
It's
community?
8:15 because I don't have.
Argument?
I don't
Argument
like to
for
look
it.
at the clock. I don't.
There's a push against it from the carpentry community.
Kind of neat.
And I would let Jim explain it, but
Not a computer, just
basically it
something to
saves
tell them the time is.
everybody energy, which means dollars in homeowners' pockets. It means more, I think what the building community, Jim has heard a lot of arguments. You know, he said Leominster, it failed 3 times and then it finally passed, you know. So he's heard a lot of arguments against the stretch code. And I don't want to try to paraphrase what those arguments are. I think they're about paperwork and having to hire HERS raters and making the job more expensive, but I think it's mostly about understanding the stretch code and what it means to, you know, what is a HERS rater, you know what I mean? Those kinds of detailed things where you have to prove that you're building a house that will satisfy, you know, that will save energy above and beyond what the existing energy code says. I mean, it's I would think it would be a smart way to build, and it would be a great sales pitch as a carpenter or a real estate agent saying this house was built to the stretch code, not just the regular. Anyway, so I would be willing to put some energy into getting that forum to take place in Warwick.
So Bill, what do we need to get other carpenters out to a meeting to hear about that? Free nails?
I would think that
Case in
there
here.
may be other ways of doing it other than a meeting, that you could put it in a flyer, because a lot of times carpenters would be a little less than willing to go to a meeting, especially I think a number of them have already come up with a position, and town meeting actually came up with a position. So in order to change that, you'd have to have a compelling argument that this is not going to place potential new homeowners out of the picture for their ability to do it. And if somebody can build the house for $150,000 according to current building code, what would the additional initial cost be? And I think that's one of the things that really scares people like myself that want to build a house and have almost nothing for a budget at the moment, to say we're going to put higher restrictions on your ability to do that. And you know, it's if I can do something under current building codes and then you impose stretch codes and I end up living in the house that I live in now instead of following my dream, I'm voting against it.
So 2 years ago, I think it was Lauren Petrain said, hey, the current code's going to change anyway, let's just wait a couple of years and see what happens. It's been over 2 years, so I think maybe a flyer would do it, but I think a face-to-face among contractors with Jim, you know, because Jim can explain what he's run up against in other towns, especially towns our size. He's the Western Mass coordinator, so he has that experience behind him. But I think you know, to answer those questions with numbers, like it costs X amount of dollar to build a home, not an addition to the stretch code. But this is the payback period for that, for the
Yeah.
energy cost to heat,
If
cool
we
that home.
had, if we invited all of the builders here and in Royalton, what was the other town?
Well, Orange,
Orange,
and then,
to come and have breakfast with us. And
Nice and early.
nice and early, like 6:30. And
Who's gonna cook it?
have
I'll
Jim,
cook it.
have Jim come there, not to make a presentation, but to be a resource.
No, there ought to be a presentation, but it ought to be concise.
Yeah.
But it would be like, when I used to be a developer, what the banker said to me, well, he says, let's meet at lunch, then at least we'll get one thing done. I'm thinking, you know, a guy's been out working all day, now he's got to deal with employees and his books and whatever. He wants to come to a 7 o'clock meeting even less than I want to come to a 7 o'clock meeting.
at 7
I think
o'clock
we
at
have-
night.
Yeah, I think we have a breakfast meeting and a short time frame, make some contacts and maybe do it a few times, we might be able to sell it.
Maybe you could come up with the concerns that they have, and you could have some answers for them, so it would shorten the time even more. Could you, like, talk to them individually and?
Me personally, I think I do know quite a few carpenters in town, and I think that based on what I know of people's positions, that you're gonna have a hard time getting people to a breakfast, a lunch, a prime rib dinner for this. It's like trying to get a Democrat to vote Republican. It's not gonna be
It seemed
easy.
to me that you came up with something very useful, that one question that needs to be answered. And if we could consult with you and maybe get some more questions that you think people would need to have answered, is that possible?
Yeah, I think your friend Jim probably has heard all the concerns, and I think he's probably capable of listing them. And you know, it's possible that you're going to have a good presentation that will put a number of people on the side of it. I don't know. I think a lot of it comes down to immediately needing to expend more money for more materials, and it's hard to get past that. I think if there are programs that pay for that, then it's a little bit easier. But I don't know. Again, you're going to have a hard time, in my opinion. I don't remember what the vote was at town meeting.
It was close.
You know, and certainly close votes change over time.
So you asked for a flyer, and I'm sure one exists already, but I can ask Jim about that. I can also, I don't know, is it all, do you want me to ask some of the carpenter people that I know, or ask at Hanshaw, or?
It's not my proposal.
But I think you were being asked if you would be willing to contact your carpenter contact.
I will invite everybody to listen to this conversation.
Do you think a breakfast meeting is a good idea, 7 a.m. or?
Or 4 o'clock beer.
I think it's something that you're going to have to poll other people on.
Okay.
What I think is that you should come up with a proposal to us about how you were going to do this, and do it pretty quickly if we're talking about October.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think
I would
summer
suggest
would-
you're starting with going to towns which have actually passed it.
About whether he actually needs December or if October's early enough.
Okay. I'm just reminds me of when I used to have a car repair business, and 1980s, and the feds came in and said, emission controls, we're going to put a bunch of them under the hoods of cars. And we thought, oh my God, we're going to go out of business, or we're just going to do mufflers and brakes for the rest of our lives, because we're not going to know how to fix this stuff. But the feds also said, not only will you put emission controls under the hoods of cars, but you will guarantee them to last 5 years or 60,000 miles, whichever comes first. And they made these emission controls to actually work. And it made our jobs a tremendous amount easier, because the stuff actually did work. And they made computers on board for diagnosing these things, and I had to eat crow there for a little while. So, anyway, just a little example. But I think 5 or 10 years from now, when oil is not $3.64, 34 cents a gallon, the people who built their homes or additions to stretch code or beyond will be sitting there going, man, I'm glad I didn't miss that opportunity back then. So, but so I will, and I'll call Jim and see if he's available at 6 in the morning. But I'll also call the contractors I know. And maybe this wouldn't be a regional meeting. Maybe this will just start with coffee and
I think so.
coffee and things around the table here in Town Hall. Yeah.
Okay. That's the weak point in our getting everything done by October. Are we covered on points 1 through 4 or 5?
Well, I'll check with Ted and see if the zoning can be expedited. The zoning proposal can be expedited.
Okay.
I'm sure there will be a cost associated with it. To me, personally.
Probably the planning board should come up with a proposal about permit expediting.
Well, it sounds like once we've got the as of right zoning, it sounds like we can just get an attorney's letter that just says there are no barriers. I mean, I'm being, it sounds funny, but I'm being serious. There's no way we could having zoned a piece of property for a solar development, having a completed, that's a big mouthful saying completed, proposal. But once we have a completed proposal in hand and the land is zoned this way, I can't imagine us taking a year to process it. I don't know what we would do to take that long. So I think we can handle that with the attorney's letter.
All right. Everybody know what they're doing here? Can we
I think we can move on.
call this one closed, I think?
Are you all
can.
set, Jenny?
Yeah, thank you. I guess we have some discussion to do at our committee.
Offhand, how many contractors do we have in town? Do you know?
I'd say probably close to a dozen.
Oh, that many.
If you're talking about carpenters, if you're talking about electricians and plumbers,
I'm not sure they're involved that much. It's mostly the
Right.
building them.
yeah.
But we have some of those too.
Well, but they can be opinion leaders and they can be voters, and if the electricians and the plumbers have bought on to this, it's still important to bring them in.
Yep, they tend to make holes in buildings. I know that for a fact. So yes, they need to be on.
Yes.
They do.
Good point there.
Yep, I've done it myself.
Okay, I think we've about reached the end of this
Thank
for
you.
tonight.
Thank you.
Yes.
You know, every time we have another meeting with Buildings and Energy, I am even more impressed than I was before. I am so grateful that you are doing all the work you're doing.
I've been told by my partner in the office, every time that you say something like that, we have to say, thank you all, and all the other committees that aren't here tonight for doing all the work that you guys do too. right?
Well, we all have to do our part, but yours is so very important,
Um, Thank you, well, yes,
and you have done so much good work.
yeah,
I just like to say so every now and then.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we happen to have a tremendous amount on our plates right now, and
Yeah.
don't have time to meet about it, but anyway. Thanks.
Thank you.
Nick, there's the wired lesson letter, but you
Go talk about it. I can't stay the rest of the night.
All right, now we're back to the reappointments. What I'd like to suggest is that I will just read through the main headings, and you will tell us, I've got an error correction on this one, if you better. That way you get through it. So, animal control officer, no changes?
No change on that.
Broadband committee,
that was good.
I'm sorry?
That's good.
Yeah.
Building inspectors,
That's fine.
building and energy committee,
That's fine too.
burial agent.
He wants out, but I'm supposed to be looking for a replacement, but we can't be without one.
So for the time being, it's correct.
Yes,
Caretaker of town clock,
that would be correct.
caretaker of town flags,
That's correct.
conservation commission,
I believe that's good.
council on aging,
That looks good.
crockery committee.
There seems to be an incorrect assumption that we need more people, but we don't on the crockery committee. We have all we need.
Okay.
Okay, somebody can tell me someday what the crockery committee does, but not now.
Okay.
Cultural council,
Looks good.
emergency management director,
Yep,
enumerator,
correct,
Uh-huh.
fence viewer,
correct.
field driver, vacancy. It's still a vacancy, right?
Yeah, our best prospect, we're embroiled with
Yeah, good luck with
a
that.
wagon wheel campground in the hole.
Fire chief,
Good.
correct. FERCog Transportation Committee.
Yep,
That's still me, unless somebody else wants it.
Okay, Franklin Regional Planning Board.
That's still Ted Katie.
for planning board and Nick for select board. Franklin Regional Council, Dawn. That looks good.
Historical Commission. Anything on the Historical Commission?
I don't know of anything.
I think they should all just be reappointed, that's all.
But you're saying it's correct.
That's correct.
Memorial Day Committee,
That's correct.
That's correct.
Wars Pond Beach Advisory Committee.
It looks good.
How are you gonna come up with 20 errors here? Old Home Days Committee.
Old Home Days Committee, we've got to find out whether Colleen is still happy doing it all by herself.
She's not. She's got Larry and Kathy Connolly.
Oh, she does.
Yeah, but we could use more, but this is what we got to appoint.
Well, why don't we add Kathy Connolly to it?
You
She
don't
is?
need to. She's on the list.
She's on the list. She was on last year's list too.
Well, are there changes?
Nope, no changes.
Open Space Committee,
That looks good.
Personnel Committee,
Personnel committee.
Personnel
That's
committee,
correct.
That's correct, yes.
Police Department,
She says that is correct. Those special officers and the other police officers have been appointed for a longer term. So,
None of the 3 years are up yet.
right, so these are the specials.
so it's all correct.
That's correct.
Recreation Committee,
Strike Holly Manson. She's been promising a resignation. Hasn't been to a meeting in a year.
so we're just keeping it except we're crossing out Holly Manson.
Correct.
Recycling coordinator,
That's correct.
registrar of voters.
That's Miriam.
And we should probably put George and
No, they're not.
Three-year appointments, they're
they're
staggered.
3 years.
We've got an independent, we've got this year's the Democrats up, and Rosa could not continue because she's town clerk.
Jimmy Fellows for undecided or undeclared is up next year. George Davis done last year.
So do we have nothing but.
We have Miriam Williamson for the Democrat vacancy. So you want to add Miriam Williamson.
Select board secretary, that seems to me to be correct. Town coordinator, that seems to be correct. Town council, so does that. Ferdinand Dupay?
He pronounced it Dupre.
Dupay.
Dupre.
I can't make those accents on my computer.
Okay, but it's correct.
Well, I've never
anyway.
figured it out. Mine's dying anyways. Maybe my next.
Town forest committee,
That is correct.
Yeah,
veterans grave agent,
That is correct.
yeah.
veterans monument committee,
That is
That's
correct.
wired Warwick, Warwick MLP,
That looks good to me.
CBA.
We have a second alternate though,
Jim Reviti, he was appointed and sworn in for 3 years.
Jim Revere.
That's what you did last meeting, and then I swore him in so we could attend the meeting the next
I
day.
thought it was, what's his name, Bradford. It was actually a week.
Yeah, Bradford has to do with the Leonard West thing. Yeah, Reviti was
Yeah.
the second one, and then I swore him in over the phone, and I double checked with Miriam, and that is an appointment until
Well,
2017.
I'm perfectly happy to have him, but he's all.
So
Um,
change Patricia Lemon to Arvidi?
No, just add another one,
Oh,
maybe second alternate.
We're talking ZBA here,
Oh,
right?
no.
That's right, we're
Where-
talking CBA.
Well, let's talk about the same thing.
But Reviti's appointment's good till 2017, I confirmed that with Miriam, so.
For ZBA,
Yeah.
not
So-
Wired West.
Yeah, I know.
I'm trying to get everybody talking to the same one.
But he doesn't need to be on this list, because
So
he's already
there's
good till
supposed to be a
2017.
line on this list that says Intervene, second
Nobody
alternate,
notices.
same date. And
Well-
the
Nick, actually not for this list, because this is a list of appointments, and a separate appointment was made of Vidi last week.
Which is why he's not on this one, because it won't expire till 2017.
so were you saying no changes in CBA?
That's correct.
All right, so we can pass this thing
We can.
with, what do we have here? We have no changes on the first page, no changes on the second page.
Hey, wait a sec, guys.
Sec-
I'm sorry?
On Arvidi, Arvidi was appointed to be the fifth member, but there's no reference to term, so why don't you add him? It's right there in the
We're
minutes.
talking,
Arvidi, ZBA, you got ZBA, Art Long.
ZBA is 5-year terms.
Okay, add Arvidi, but I don't know if he's.
He
we
was
don't-
filling, wasn't he, I don't know.
Second
Miriam
alternate.
told me it was till 2017, that's what I swore him in for, and that's what I wrote down in the book.
All right, well, let's give it
Well,
in
that's what's
in minutes by
well,
putting it
let's
this time,
go through this in order.
because it's not in these minutes as to what the term is.
No, there was no vote on the term, that's why I checked with Miriam when it was date.
The term is in the handbook.
Well, no, but he's filling an unexpired term,
He's
so
filling
don't
an
just add
unexpired
five.
term, so it
So
would be
just
6/37.
Pen Arvidi in there in 2017 and make it part of this
Because
appointment.
he's already actually technically been sworn in for it, but now it'll be in this thing too.
Okay, good.
Well, the third page of this list,
delete all of them.
Holly is stricken from the Recreation Committee, and Registrar of Voters Miriam Williamson, Democrat, is added. And the final page is the ZBA. Now, what is getting changed to the ZBA?
Jim Hervidi is the
Second alternate,
second alternate,
2017.
and we're just confirming that it's well, it actually doesn't start 7/1/14 because you appointed him last week, but his expiration is 6/30/17. And then what will happen is I will amend this as to how you voted it. This will be attached to the minutes that the town clerk keeps. They go on the website that David has in your office, everything.
That's what we
So,
need.
is there a motion?
I move that we accept that we appoint the people that we have discussed that are on the list.
With the changes we just
As
made.
what? As read.
I'm sorry?
As read.
Makes
Yeah,
it
John
shorter.
suggests, and I think
Second.
that's good.
It just cuts out a lot of the,
It sure does.
yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion?
let's vote.
Let's vote. Go for it.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Select board reports.
None.
None.
Coordinator report, I think.
I
Said a
think
whole
we
bunch.
discussed that.
Is there
so-
anything more?
Well, just, I've had an incredible interest in the school re-roofing from plan aggravators. There are these companies that, I guess, construction firms pay money and they go out and look for work, and so.
Aggregator?
Aggregators, that's what I'm calling
Yeah.
them. They're taking
I
all the
thought you
plans.
said aggravators.
That's what I thought.
They're aggravators to me, I'll tell you what. I'm waiting for somebody real who might actually want to bid on the thing. So I'm putting all those clowns off for a while.
Good.
But I hope, so we're bidding the labor only, and before an award date, working on how to deal with the gym roof. And I'm hoping it's as simple as some foam panels just on top of what's there. If that's bad science, then I hope to find out before we get there.
How many layers are there at this point?
That's just the original failed
Just the
roof.
original.
But these panels, Bill went up there and investigated them. There was no way to interlock them, except butt edging them together. You know, there weren't even any instructions to put a bead of caulk on or anything. And the evidence of melt is just incredible. It should motivate me to fix the massive cracks in my ridge pole, because I must be losing like 100 times more heat, because my cracks are as big as my finger instead of a couple pieces of paper. So, and then USDA was supposed to be out here last Friday, but they didn't have the paperwork, so hopefully this week, that's a $20,000 grant for Firetruck, which will mean we put the money back, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Highway truck, and we pull the money back out and restock Chapter 90 with that money. And then we got inspections at Johnny McKnight's for his illegal dump and Wagon Wheel Campground going this week, which I will help coordinate.
That's not done. Just-
Okay,
I'm
on
behind
new
the
another
scenes.
items, I believe Patricia had one.
Yes, I want to, since David brought it up in the past month or so, I think we need to have an actual discussion town-wide about the future of the school. Whether we want to make it a charter school or just continue supporting it with an insufficient school census. And if we make it into a charter school, if we want to consider making it into a creche as well, so that people who work out of town and have children have the support system they need.
How would you like to kick this off?
At this point, I just wanted to get it on the agenda and possibly on a future agenda where we can discuss it in somewhat more detail. Okay?
Okay, if you, on a future agenda, maybe you would start by having a report to the town on what the possibilities are here, just the way you laid it out
Sure.
tonight, except a little bit more detail on a page or two.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then we could start things rolling.
Then people would start talking about it and complaining about it and telling us what would work and what wouldn't work, and that's what we need to hear.
Yeah.
Well, I said,
I've been-
I really, I'm sorry.
I've been told that there are more cho- students
Choice?
by choice in that school than we're aware of.
I spoke to the third, fourth grade for an hour last week, and I've got to say it softened me up a little bit in my attitudes about, inefficient, blah, blah, blah. I think there were 10 kids in the class. 2 of them were choice, the others were from Warwick. What an unbelievable educational experience these kids can have. And I guess one of my takeaways was, in terms of my desire to, operate the school at capacity, was I think it's just plain bad form, poaching, for school superintendents to go poaching other school superintendents. So something we ought to look at is, some external force marketing Warwick School that this superintendent's office could disavow. Yeah, we ought to look at shutting down and breaking out on our own or otherwise rationalizing it. And we ought to have some community meetings to discuss it, because I said at town meeting that this can't persist. It's so inefficient. And Angel Simon stood up and said, I came to this town because of the school and the situation being what it was. And one of her kids was one of the 10 kids in that class with a very dynamic teacher, with 10 kids. I
So
thought, boy,
what
this
were you
was not.
talking to those kids about?
I was talking to them about town government and my job as town coordinator, and basically getting them to think about what government does, what local
I'm
government
so
does.
glad you did that.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And bright
There was only
kids.
10 kids in the women's class. There was 56 kids in her first and second grade class. 56.
When's this?
One room when I went to school. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, so we built this school for 125 kids with 4 classrooms,
Yeah.
and we've only got 40-something kids in that school.
I don't remember how many there was, but there was a full busload twice a day.
So, yeah, if we want to touch the third rail, I think we definitely get some discussions, some meetings going to talk about making changes at the school. But
It's not going to be an easy discussion, but I think it's one that we need to start.
Notwithstanding that I'm a yellow dog Democrat, I really like charter schools, but I don't think we got a chance. The teachers union fights their creation so much. The state meets out very few charter schools. Many of them are specialized to the arts or science or blah, blah, blah. I think just a flat-out private school would be more. The nice thing about charter schools is that they're like school choice because they get the public dollars. They're not considered parochial schools or private schools. What we're laboring under is the bargain that was made when we gave up our local control of we had up until 1990, 91, someplace around there, we had locally controlled elementary school. The teachers were on our payroll, the janitor was on our payroll, the principal was on our payroll, the selectmen signed there, and that wasn't very efficient. And it was certainly something the state wanted to eliminate. So part of the bargain of we'll regionalize K through 6 in addition to, we'd already regionalized 7 through 12, was you get to keep your own school. And who would have thought, 20-something years later, we don't have as many kids in the school as we had then. It was just not anything anybody considered.
May I segue?
Pardon?
It's still on the matter of schools, but all of all of the state mandated programs and tests and everything that are not funded, do you think, I'm just asking for, do you think it would do any good if we got together with the other towns in our region and put some pressure on some of our legislators?
To do what?
To have them not be mandating programs that they don't fund, because we end up paying for that, and the school costs are going up and up and up. And I don't know, I just think we should be able to do something. It's getting,
Yeah.
do you think it would do anything?
I think we'd be better off to aggressively meet with Leiden and Bernardston to discuss our common problem and way out. When I think about going to Boston, I've got to remind myself that Franklin County is 1% of the population of Massachusetts, and Warwick is 1% of the population of Franklin County. So,
Bend over and kiss yourself goodbye.
trying to effect much change at the State House.
We don't have very
Well, I
much.
can imagine that other counties and
And Don, I
Towns.
think there's more than one bill has passed and been signed in law that says unfunded mandates are illegal, but guess what?
Right.
They keep on coming.
You've noticed.
Yeah.
That's because they put them words at the end of it. Funding is eminent. Just nobody knows when that is.
But we got an
There was
efficiency
always the
problem.
courts.
Yeah, we got an efficiency problem. I mean,
yeah.
how many, I think in the Brattleboro school system in the 60s, I think the rule was no more than 31 kids in the classroom. And I think I saw more than that in Battle Creek.
We had 3 teachers, and one of those was the principal. And we didn't have days off like they get nowadays. God, the kids
Oh,
are
you mean
forever
the-
getting a day off for the teachers to go.
They get every Friday to get out early.
Yeah, that's bullshit. And
I
they
don't
want
feel like
more
I'm
money
getting my
every
money's
month. Every week, they want
I
more
think I
money.
would end
and less
motion
work.
to adjourn.
And look at Paula, she can't even spell,
Second,
Second.
you know?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Good meeting, and boy, did